All right, it's Wednesday, September 13th. This is an end of the day SPY recap. And today we end up with more very narrow price activity, a slight two down day, but it ended up green, didn't follow through to its next target even. And yet it's not really closing strong to give you an indication of what happens tomorrow. But in terms of the weekly price action so far, you could see we're very much inside of last week, which was inside of the prior week. So we're really narrowing here. That means at any moment, there should be a strong push one way or the other to either test the inside breakout of the highs or the inside breakout last week of the lows. And we'll see if that unfolds with the remaining 2 days in the week. For today, however, after this failure day yesterday and closing a little red, you expected it to test to the lows of the day, and quite frankly, there was a good chance today could have been the strong down day to broaden out. These three bars, as I've been discussing, broadened out above that red bar here, higher high, and then as we make two down, lower lows, you're expecting it maybe to come back through that range all the way down there. Once you kind of have a two down and then a continuation today that doesn't even reach the next target, that kind of gets you excited for an actionable signal back to the upside. If your downward moves can't reach their immediate broadening targets, then, if we can get a two up, then you kind of look at these two targets very close and a possible move to break out of that weekly high, or the weekly high of last week. So we will see what happens. And again, in terms of today's trading, while the opportunities weren't great, the good news is, using at least the way I look at price action, there was you were not going to get hurt at all. So first of all, you had the big CPI number before the market opened, so that kind of created pretty wide pre-opening range for a second here. After the release, the pre-market action went pretty low. Then it kind of by the open came all the way back up. So you had the high here of the pre-market range below the midpoint of the prior day, and you had the low way down here that just really took out some of these stops and then immediately bounced up. So from that standpoint, the very first move of the day kind of opened up green above the first bar, above the pre-market range. The question was there, are you going to follow through and start higher and maybe, start a reversal day to the upside or not? And in this case, you had the inside little bar here, and then on the red bar on bar 3, there was your chance to go short. Number one, you were failing at the pre-market highs, which is always something you look for when you open up inside of the pre-market highs. You want to see if that first move kind of just takes out stops and reverses or continues. So anyway, you're failing up there. You're below the midpoint of the prior day. Here's the prior day. You're kind of below the midpoint, and you're getting that red follow through. So I bought some puts, and I discussed how I scale. And this is, again, where my methodology, where, it's conservative, it generally helps me in these conditions. I scaled out to set up a no-risk trade when we could. I was expecting it, first of all, to take out the intraday low, and then I can see yesterday's low down here, which is kind of in line with this little pre-market low. These, which are already taken out pre-market, but they're still there maybe for other people who didn't trade pre-market. Anyway, there was the low of yesterday. That's all price was really looking to. When it came down there, I scaled out, set up a no-risk trade, and as soon as I got that two down, two up, I exited the remaining part of the position at even and had a very small gain there. And at that point, just looking at structure on the day, you didn't know if you were going to hold here, kind of the midpoint of that first bar, and then make another move down. That you were kind of expecting that possibly, but it moved up strong enough above the midpoint of the first bar where it just immediately took out the first bar high. So at that point, structure-wise, you're in a bit of a bit of conflict in the sense that, number one, the intraday structure is now up. You're above the first bar high. That first bar, as I've discussed many times, is kind of my main. It's my main measuring stick. So we went above that. So at least for the moment, I know you could, after this big green bar, 5 bars up, you could have pulled back halfway and started up again. But yet at that moment, you're kind of still not quite at the halfway point of that yesterday's bar. So in order for get a reversal, you have to kind of take out the low yesterday and then take out the midpoint of yesterday. And you're very close to that on this move up. So then at that point, just to see, like yesterday when it came up there and took out the intraday high, it immediately failed very strong. This one didn't fail all that strong. We came down, we kind of held, and then so you had an opportunity here on this green bar to kind of, on this 2-up bar here, to say, all right, let's see if it takes out the intraday high, and that can maybe trigger taking out the midpoint of the prior day somewhere up here and getting an outside day to the upside. So if you took that under those, under that kind of scenario, nothing wrong with that. You had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, almost an hour and a half. Eventually it did take out that high. That's all that's what you're trying to do. And then it immediately failed. So if you did get long in here thinking, all right, it's an orderly pause, we're up on the day, maybe I'll give it a shot to see if we build momentum the upside. Once you sort of take out, on 2 moves, I'm always looking for those 2 moves. 1 push up, that was the first directional move of the day. Pause, second push up, fail. So there's your break even kind of scenario. And once you didn't really see it going all that much, this green bar gave you a chance, and then it immediately, once you saw it coming back into the range, you had a break even. Not surprising, as always, that the market then decides to get very choppy, come down strong, go up strong. But at this point, once it failed, you weren't really thinking it's going to take out the high of the day anymore, and you weren't thinking, necessarily, it could have taken out the low of the day, but that wasn't necessarily expected up here. But it's not surprising, given the recent price action of all this crazy volatility, that when you fail, it does head the other way, at least to maybe take out this stop here, and then that built a little momentum, but then immediately it popped up. So anyway, what's unfolding here, I still think it's worth. So in other words, on this trade, you could have had, and even if you didn't scale out, that's what I tend to do down here on that first. This was really the best trade of the day, opening short that just didn't go anywhere, and you should have broken even at the worst. I ended up taking a small gain, and quite frankly, there were other stocks that I was watching that did well. Once the market headed up, I bought Broadcom up here, and that obviously was a nice winning trade. And then I bought some puts on Moderna. You could always look around and find some stocks that are doing certain things. And if you would have, even other stocks that I didn't trade, if you would have traded Nvidia today on the first bar breakout, or even this holding the midpoint second push up, it moved up nicely in that, for 1 push up, kind of a second push up type of thing. So, there were opportunities out there depending what you chose, but the indexes themselves, the SPY, really was tricky according to the way I like to view the 15-minute chart. So anyway, I would call this, even though we're inside and we're just trying to play, some breakout's going to be strong. I just don't know when. But now that we failed going down, if we can start midpoint of this bar and head up, I would certainly try that. I'd also continue, we still have 2 down continuations here after failing, broadening out about that bar. So, you can go either way at this point, but just that's why I'm being very nimble, because at the moment, until we really get it going, and we'll know when it happens. You'll see if this would have been the bar, this would have went down, 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 would have taken out. There was a nice stop here to be taken out of the CPI number. It really should have come down strong, but it didn't do that. So we'll know once 15-minute price action leads us to a strong breakout one way or the other, but it hasn't happened in the first 3 days of the week. So again, big inside bar from last week, narrowing even more this week. So a breakout is coming, but just know the environment you're in, and we'll see what happens tomorrow. And, again, I kind of like, whenever I see the failure to reach a target on it, on this continuation move that should have hit this low down here, then I'm ready for an actionable signal back to the upside. So we'll see if that unfolds. But, it still can go either way.